Hello, kind people. This is Dmitry, and what a treat we have today. We have a Sabre in the listener. I absolutely have to say a few words about the setter before I talk about the puzzle. As there are very few setters in the listener world and in the world of thematic cryptics in general that are as terrifying as that of Sabre. So let me try and show you why. So this is the listener puzzle website, and there is a list of all the setters there. And if you go to the letter S, the very first entry there is Sabre. The real name is Andrew Bremner, and as you can see, 75 listeners were published by Sabre. The very first of them appeared in July 1970. That's more than 14 years before I was born. And there are also a bunch of collaborations, and I believe we reviewed one of these collaborations in earlier on this year in the puzzle called All for Race. There is a brilliant video of Sabre's speech at the listener dinner in Bristol 2.5 years ago. And the video is on YouTube. It is, I think, unlisted, so I will have to contact the author and, check whether it is fine to link to it in the description. But one of the things Sabre mentions there is that 50 years ago at the very first listener dinner, a very famous setter asked him what sort of puzzles he's doing, and at the time Sabre had something like 2 puzzles published, and so he didn't know exactly what to answer there. But if he were to ask the same question now, he would say he's making hard ones. So, and this is certainly a hard one. And let's go back to the puzzle. So in the Magpie, like this one would certainly be an E-grade puzzle. And oddly enough, this month we do have an E-grade puzzle by Sabre in the Magpie. I hope that I have solved both by now, and I think that this one is more difficult than the Magpie one. So let's read the preamble, and then I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to go about it, because this is one of those rare puzzles where the beauty is not so much, is actually in how difficult it is and how difficult the individual clues are. And so to give it justice, I actually have to replicate quite a lot of the solving process, because it was a little bit of it felt like a psychedelic trip a little bit, how you had to use later stages of the puzzle to help with the earlier one, and then you sort of go deeper and deeper and still have to come back, and you haven't filled the grid yet. So it definitely is not one of those puzzles where you do the grid fill and then you do the end game. Here you have to do it all at once, or at least I had to. Okay, but let's read the preamble. First, let's have a look at the grid. As you can see, there are no bars. There are a bunch of numbers, and then there are these gaps in the bars, in the grid bars, the grid lines. And also some grid lines, they stick out of the grid in rather regular fashion. And in fact, I think when I looked at this particular pattern of how they stick out, I had a very, very, very tiny sort of inkling, like a very, very faintest of bell was ringing in like the correct stage of the end game to me. And I feel it might have been the case for other solvers as well. But okay, let's finally read the preamble. It's not as long. Common clues are entered normally. Trapdoor answers are split in 2 parts, the first entered from the numbered cell, the second elsewhere in the grid. Each part has at least 2 letters and maybe a cross or down. Spinning answers are entered jumbled. Jumping answers make a sequence of knight's moves. Two may be traced in two ways. Each clue's wordplay leads to the answer with an extra letter not entered in the grid. The letters in given clue order lead to instructions that must be followed. Chambers Dictionary is the primary reference. And as you can see, the clues are split into these four groups: common, trapdoor, spinning, and jumping. So I solved it on paper, and I have here this sheet of paper with where I actually didn't indicate like which are the clues that I solved first. So I have here the first 8 of them, I think, or maybe even 9. So maybe I'll start with some of them. Okay, so obviously, like when you're faced with a very difficult set of clues, and Sabre's clues are always very difficult, and I'll show you why they're very difficult. The main reason is that once you've been setting this for 50 years, you know all the tricks, and you know what the solvers are kind of looking for. And so you try to make your clues in such a way that there are so many different ways of parsing them. And because the solvers are used to certain, ways how, the particular abbreviations are used and everything. And then you're making sure that they're always wrong there. Anyway, so let's have a look. So the very first, I think, and you are looking for anagrams as your first kind of clue. So for example, flailing you can act. I see 9 letters here. I know we have extra letter in every clue. So I'm trying to anagram that. And like a rorqual is a type of a whale. So I get, I'm not sure I know how to pronounce this. I want to say cetacean, but it's probably wrong. And the extra letter is L, and there we have our clue, and we would love to enter it in its space here, because it's in a cross clue. The problem is it is a spinning clue, so it's jumbled, and so any permutation of those letters could in theory be entered there, and so we have no clue how we're doing that. The second one was this one. Old scars festering on the skin of Arctic foxes. So again, festering here, like flailing, could be an anagram indicator. And so I thought it could be an anagram of O plus scars. That gives me 6 letters. Skin of Arctic gives me AC, that's 2 more. And 8 is fine because, again, we need an extra letter. And so indeed there is a word, and the word is Corsac, and this time we can enter it here. And Orsac is an anagram of old scars, sorry, Orsacs. And instead of the skin of Arctic, so instead of AC, we just take C, and so you get A as an extra letter. So this is a very easy clue by Sabre standards. What did I get next? I think, so anagram scans like were my strategy in the beginning. So again, like variably, I think another possible anagram indicator can entail 9 letters. Great. So, and indeed, Lytans is a type of some flaw in concrete. And we can enter, so that means that N is an extra letter. And we can confidently enter this letter here. And then we're somewhat stuck because we don't know where it goes. It goes either this way for at least 2 letters or this way for at least 2 letters. But we don't know where. We sort of could suspect that the setter is trying to play fair in a sense that if we look at, there is a 28 down clue, which goes here. And so it's not particularly beautiful to sort of run one clue inside another. So I was strongly suspecting that it would go this way. But in theory, nothing, nothing guarantees that. Okay, now what was the next one? The next one was another anagram, outlandish delasing protein, and gliadin is a protein. So T becomes here an extra letter. And then I got this, which is like yet another anagram, blowing up Arctic shelter. You rate a shock here. That's Richter scale, with T becoming an extra letter, and so on. So I got a few, and basically I at some point arrived at the grid which looked like this. So what I showed here, and it was very helpful when solving, I realized that it's useful to just mark which entries are normal. And you can see there is almost like a sub-crossword within there. There are actually two, because like this part is disconnected from the other one. And I solved almost all of them at some point. So those are the only ones you could enter with some degree of confidence. And I think I also, so this was the spinning one, 36 across. This was God, which is like a Shakespearean word for ornament, and so T is an extra letter, and it's a hidden. And because it's spinning, it could be anagrammed, but I think like these two letters you get from the normal clues, and then how did I get the other one? Yeah, and then 37, which is this jumping one, which makes night moves, I solved as gate crash. Not that easy a clue, so guns are gats, and then there is an anagram of search, and to gate crash is to be intrusive. So again, like by the standards of this puzzle, this is an easy one. And so I got G, and then this becomes W, and so I solved that one. And I was left with just two normal ones which I couldn't get at this time. No, three. This one, and this one. I really wanted this to be righter, but I didn't quite understand why. And for this one, I just had no idea whatsoever. So 17 down was request concerning French lady. And because concerning is often rare, I really wanted this to be starts with rare, and then there will be some French lady, and the whole thing would mean request. So something like reserve could possibly be request, a request a seat, a reserve a seat. I'm not sure whether that works, but I thought it might. But then why serve plus an extra letter would be a French lady? That doesn't seem to work at all. So, but as a result of this, because the message appears in clue order, because I solved a bunch of common clues, I actually got the message part from there. And that message part was perform Caesar shift. And Caesar shift is just a very simple type of encoding where you have a message and you just shift each letter by a certain number of steps in the alphabet. So if like Caesar shift of 3 makes, it turns A into D and B into E and so on. So we need to apply this to something. And I think this is about where like my breakthrough happened, because I realized that, okay, here it is very likely to be letters. And then I thought this could be letters off. And then I realized this could be clues. And from this, I realized this could be initial. And so this could be perform Caesar shift. And they didn't really think like it was like either to or off, possibly. And then I thought this could be initial letters off. And here I initially put the, which actually turned out to be wrong. and the correct one turned out to be all. And luckily I spotted this, and I think I spotted this when I saw this clue, because that's actually not a hard one. Commonest for tubby is B. A fisherman is an angler. And so you remove L and you get a banger, which is a sausage. And so the extra letter is L, and they realized this couldn't be the, and that means that it's the only other option that I could think of was all. So we need to perform Caesar shift to initial letters of all clues. So we need to turn this A into something and blah, 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 blah. You could do it using paper and pencil. I was lazy and I found an online thing that can do this. And basically what it says is Morse grid atom did and tos da make breaks at broken bars. Then I realized that, so it's not atom, it's A2M. So you need to treat the grid as a Morse code where each letter that is in the first half of alphabet, A to M is famously the first half of alphabet, and lots of cryptic clues were written around this fact. So that becomes a dit, which is a dot in what I think is, like I used to, I mean, in Russian they are dots and hyphens. So basically, so this is the first half of the alphabet encodes to this, the second half of the alphabet encodes to that. And then we need to read the corresponding message, and these breaks tell us where to stop, because Morse code is variable length code. So, for example, E and T, so this is E and this is T, right? But this could be either ET or it could be just A, because this is a code for A. And so we need to know where to break. I think in actual Morse transmission, you do make pauses between your transmissions. But here we need to someone needs to tell us where the breaks are, and these broken bars do. So this is the very first letter, and as you can see, this is dot dash dot, and that is an R. And then you have here, and then here you have just one B, that's an E, so we have RE, and here you have dot something, which I strongly suspected to be L, because that clue was something in South Africa, so I was ready to bet on this being, being a dash dash dot, which would be a G, and then this is, sorry, not this, this is an A, and this is another this is another R, because it's again dash dot dash dot. So in other words, the message started to appear, and this is what it looked like when I first got it, and maybe it was even less of that. But basically I got this, then there was this thing, and as you can see, around from about here, 1, 2, 3, 4, there are 4 one symbol per code letters, and so they could only be E or T, because dot is an E, and so there was this sequence, and we know that this is from the second half of the alphabet, so that's a T. And then also we know the code for like this 3, and then we can have a code for this 3. And so, as you could imagine, I rather confidently put G here, D, L, and disambiguated this E, E, and E. And so now I know that, this, sorry, not letters, letters. So I know that this has to be a dot, this has to be a dash, and so this has to be a dot, and so on. and then there is something, 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 something in or A, I, or N, wool, don't know what. And then the second half is again quite decodable. So you have A, I, U, or S, E, D, so much more likely to be A'd. Dots or sods, dots again is much more likely. And then rare something. And then there is a choice of 4 because I didn't know 2 letters in a row there, so there was 4 possible combinations. But here I guessed blank, and then again, and then I realized that raised dots, plus the fact that the grid is nicely partitioned by these lines into this bunch of, 3x2 rectangles, means that it's likely to be Braille. And so here, sorry, there are actually 3 slots here. So BR, Braille could be the next code, and so it would be here rest blank, and here it would be probably raised dots, because that's what Braille is all about. And that allowed me, because I guessed quite a lot of letters here, that allowed me to put a lot of dots and dashes into the grid. And that helps a lot if we recall how these spinning clues work. So there was this clue for Richter scale, which goes here, right? And we now already traced from it scale and T, those are positioned, but the others we don't know where they are. But if we now suddenly know that this has to be a dot, 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 and this has to be a dash, 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 then we know that this is ICH, and all 3 of them are ICH. And then this is whatever is left there. Can't remember what it was. R, I think it's just R and T, because they're Richter. Yeah, there are 2 R's and 1 T, so both of them are R. So there's only one choice here, R and C. And that helps a lot, because then suddenly you realize, oh, there was this gliadine thing which starts here. So it has to go somewhere. It can't go anywhere else. I think it's 33. Yeah, it's the trapdoor protein. And so it has to go here. And it's quite likely that it carries on all the way to A as a glia and then emerges somewhere else as din. Like maybe here, or maybe somewhere else, or maybe here. Here is unlikely, because I thought this was a very nice trapdoor answer that I thought I got, because it starts at 13, and 13 is no longer flowing lava, course over eastern ridge, and it's this strange word, which I have never heard of, but the way it works, and it means no longer flowing lava. And course is how does this work? That's because it's not Caesar shift on. It's, oh, and I messed it up. Somehow I messed it up. Perform Caesar. What did I do wrong? Okay, it wasn't perform Caesar shift. It was perform A. Caesar shift. Should have been more careful when transcribing from my paper. And here the correct one was actually 2 initial something. So the extra letter here is T, and path is a course, O is over, E is eastern, and Ho is a ridge. And that clue nicely fits. So it starts here, it cannot go to the right, so it has to go down. It has to go down, and then it immediately hits D, so it has the ho has to emerge somewhere else, and I thought this was such a nice spot for it. Which also gave me the first letter for 27. 27 I solved at the time, and it was this mat. And by now I forgot how it worked, but I probably... Okay, I guess it's an anagram of rough, so O is an extra letter, and it gets dirt or earth in. Yeah, and the whole thing is floor mat. That's how it works. So anyway, the key thing was that now I got yet another layer of the end game. I realized that we need to treat the portions of kind of this as a letter in Braille, and with a little bit more luck and some guessing of what goes where, I managed to I realized that this is a wolf spider, likely to be, because I think at some point I got it to this, and I thought like, okay, what is it, a wolf's rider or something, and then somehow wolf spider made a lot of sense, because that was the only thing in Chambers that kind of was fitting. And I realized that in theory this could be just a non-word, because it's just a sequence of letters that we have to treat as raised dots, but I kind of trusted Sabre there, and I thought, let's go with this wolf spider idea, especially since this whole thing is called Spyder with a Y. I still don't exactly understand why. I think I should try like Caesar shifts on that, or maybe some other encodings from the puzzle. I don't know. But then I started trying to decode back the Braille message, and at the time I had the lower half of the grid much more filled than the top one, and so I started from here, which was an R. So as you can see, there are like 3 dots there like this. No, 4 dots like this. So I think that's an R in Braille. And then basically sometimes where I didn't know what it was, like here, obviously it could either be a raised dot or not, and I can try both, and again I just then have 2 options. But sometimes it was the case that just one of them was not a legal Braille character, and so that was easy. And so I rather quickly read Spyder in the bottom row of Braille, and as you can see, this row was also almost complete, and so I read all Kian here, and I thought, okay, now I know that this is going to be a T, and then I got aim off, and then I realized that this would be N. And even though a lot of letters were still missing from this row, I rather confidently guessed that it would be shade, and that was consistent with the letters that were already in. And then at this very point, I realized that, I know the name of Tolkien's Spyder, it's Shelob, or I don't know how you pronounced it in English. Is it Shelob? Shelob? I don't know. In Russian we say Shelob. But there she is. And and that actually, the very last instruction of the end game, I'm still not done with the grid fill, and I still haven't solved all the clues. In particular, this 7 down, I had no idea what it was, even with all these letters. And finally, when I got these letters, I managed to stuck them into, my the Quinapolus word matcher, and it turns out that the answer for this clue is hobblers, and I think now I know how to parse it, but I only parsed it about like 5 minutes ago before starting to record this, and I think it's absolutely brutal. So hobblers is an old word for horses. So this is the definition. Outside carrying barrels about, and the extra letter is R. Now barrel could be abbreviated to B, but also barrel could be abbreviated to BL. So barrels, I think, refers to carrying B and BL as two different abbreviations for barrels. And then there is about, and about is RE. And R is an extra letter, so you don't have that. And then outside you have horse. And horse, if one goes to Chambers and looks at it, is actually a French preposition, means outside. I think this is one of the hardest listener clues that I might have ever seen. It's just evil, but it works. And so this is the type of, so throughout I kind of had to receive help from all the information that I could get from the end game. So the fact that, that this has to be a specifically from the second half of the alphabet, I think helped me with these two letters. Maybe not. By now I can't remember. It was all in a blur. But then there was this almost like Sudoku-like situation where, as you might remember, this was the whale-like thing, the ketasean, or however you pronounce the Latin word. And so the only two letters which were left was NT here and NT there. Similarly, 3 down. What was 3 down? Not hopeless. Hopeless was 3 down was Dunnards. Another crazy hard clue. How did it work? Oh yeah, dueña is a governess, and E was an extra letter, and then you have initially RTS, reacts to scary, and Dunnards are mice. And so again, like the only thing that was so this, oops, sorry, this thing here was meant to be, I need another color, Dunnards, and so I placed everything apart from NT, and so now placement of any of these letters, disambiguates all 3 cells. Finally, I managed to get this, which turned out to be wait a bit, which is the type of prickly plant. I'm not even sure I fully parsed that clue. Have I parsed this clue? Maybe not. I actually need to check it, because if it is wrong, it might be annoying. Cry is whale with an extra L, so that's what I thought. And then I have a check and an infant. Check could be tab, I guess, and could it possibly be infant? Maybe it can, like if you can refer to infant as, yeah, a young, the neuter, okay, so basically the neuter of he or she and him apply to a thing without life, a low animal, a young child. So yeah, again, that's evil, right? But basically, because it is wait a bit, there is no N in wait a bit, and so this becomes a T, this becomes an N, and this becomes a T. Some of the letters you could only get with the help of these jumping clues, which we really haven't talked about yet. But so, for example, this here is a babako. Another evil clue. So, fruit company pursues return of sitcom. Here I somehow had to manage to Google that AbFab is a sitcom. I think that's what it is. I mean, I wasn't around when it was around. So, and you return it, you take out F and you get Baba, and then as a company, you put it at the end, and Babako is a fruit. And so you have to trace it with knight's move, and so here from B you have to jump to A, and from that A you have to jump to B again, and so if this is an A, for example, we can go there, 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 here, and there, and that would work. Similarly, it would work with this being an A, but that would, you know, make other things not work. Finally, I managed, I think, around this time to solve this 4 down, which I was quite confident would start with S because I thought that South Africa, SA could stand for South Africa. What I forgot that ZA for Zuid Africa could also stand for South Africa. So the answer was Zabeta. So it started, it was the trapdoor one, which went here and then carried on there. And I think the very last clues that I solved, oh, and I haven't really finished filling it, but basically, I think with the help of these jumping ones, I got, but I still need to check this because these are the 3 cells that it looks like they are all unchecked, and they are, I only rely on the fact that I need those letters for my jumping one. And also I'm not sure that some of them need to be traced in 2 ways, and so I really want this to be A, but for some reason it is H in my draft. I'm not even sure about it. I need to check this because, okay, so here's the trick, right? So the 2 of those night jumping clues have to be traced in 2 ways, and I haven't really properly checked this, so I'm not sure whether currently they are. Especially this Babaku is very kind of wanted to be like this. Okay, maybe not. And then I think this were E and E. But all of this I will recheck, and I'm ready to change that. Also, so this 40 across, well, not across, it's a trapdoor one, but it has to be across because it can't really go down and be 2 cells long. This was a very nice clue, which took me a long time, much longer than needed, because this is yet again like Sabre playing on this idea that solvers are used to particular constructions. So special hate seething to top in Sabre's case. And when you see in Sabre's case, you are thinking, well, SE is a case of the word Sabre. And but here the capitalization is misleading, and it actually means in Sabre's case, that's the definition, and so it is actually sheathed. So it is special, and then there is an anagram of hate, and then there is top, and top is head with an extra letter A going there. And then I wasn't sure like whether it goes T here and then carries on head here, or whether T goes there. And the reason I couldn't sort it was because I couldn't solve the other clue. And the other clue was this one. And I finally got it. I think this was my very last one. Well, apart from, you know, things I was confident about they were right, but I just couldn't parse them. So old woman, I was confident was Mar, and now I needed a word for humiliate, and I just couldn't find it. And I even knew that I was looking for... No, I messed it up again. How did that happen? Oh, yeah, that's because on this page I haven't really corrected this nonsense. So it was shift to initial. So the extra letter was I. And so the word to humiliate is to wither. And if you get rid of I there because it's an extra letter, you get this. And that's the dialect country word for lass. And that means the only place that could go as a continuation, because it starts with Mar and then it stops and goes into, carries on from here. So then I realized this is not a T, and hence this is a T. And I can't remember at which point I got this as an A. Maybe that was just from the jumping ones. Probably it had something to do with the sausage. So banger has to go from here to A and from that to N. And from this A, you can't jump to any N's. And that means that this has to be an A. Because from then you can jump to this N, to this G, to this E, and then to this R. Yeah, so I don't have here yet the complete grid, as you can see. So I think this is B from Hobblers. It has two B's. This is I from Wait a Bit. So this is my current version of the grid, and this is R from Richter scale. And obviously I have to then, get rid of everything else and gray shade this thing. So this is my current version of the grid. I'm not sure about these three letters. I will triple check them, because if it is true that they only come from the jumping entries, I need to be very, very, very careful about those. This was already a 40-minute long video, but this was that difficult a puzzle. And I'm not sure Sabre's, the reason why people love Sabre's puzzles, the reason why, people who have been solving Listener for quite some time love them. I don't think this is really translatable, and I don't think I can represent it in a video. Because it is exactly the solving process which is so dear to them. It's not about the theme. It's not about them reflecting some beautiful fact from real world. Like, come on, we're just shading the name of Tolkien, Spyder, and we're guessing there via Morse code and the Braille. What does that have to do with Tolkien? Just completely irrelevant. But the whole experience is just this crazy trip, and I don't think there are any other setters that take you on this kind of a ride. So another stunning Listener. Thanks a lot to Sabre. I'm not sure whether this video made any sense at all, but then sometimes I thought that the solving process didn't make much sense, and I'm not even sure I show you the correct grid at the end of it. But I have another week and a half to check this, so I probably will. I will make it known in the description whether this ended up the correct one or not. Thank you so much for watching. And one final comment here is that I heard that basically from his comments on the latest video, Simon from Cracking the Cryptic might be actually recording the solve for this on Patreon. And if he does, precisely because it is the solve that is important here, watching a top quality, like a top solver like Simon, live solving Sabre puzzle is going to be an astonishing view for, very rewarding view for anyone who loves cryptic crosswords. So if it is going to be, it's going to be on that Patreon. If it is there, I will announce in the later videos, and that would be a very good reason to subscribe to that Patreon. Right, thank you for watching, and see you in a week with hopefully a somewhat easier puzzle. Bye.